let's talk about something really important. What happens to the rights of LGBTQ plus citizens in a state like Alabama if some of those big landmark Supreme Court protections just disappear? That's what we're diving into, and believe me, it has huge implications for thousands and thousands of people.
I mean, let's just cut right to it. Imagine this. Could your marriage, the very foundation of your family and your life, just stop being legally recognized from one day to the next? For a lot of folks, this isn't some far-off hypothetical. It's a very real and very scary possibility.
And this is really where that big national debate hits home. We're zeroing in on Alabama because, with its conservative legislature, rolling back these key Supreme Court rulings wouldn't just be some small legal change. No, it would be a massive shock to the system, potentially wiping out decades of progress just like that.
Okay, so let's really break this down. What is actually at stake here? First, we need to get a clear picture of the specific rights that are hanging in the balance in a state like Alabama. So you've got to understand these rights really rest on two main legal pillars. The first one is Obergefell by Hodges. That's the big 2015 case that made same-sex marriage legal across the entire country. The second one, just as important, is Lawrence v. Texas from back in 2003. That's the one that struck down sodomy laws and basically said, hey, same-sex couples have a right to privacy. Now, if those two pillars crumble, the fallout in Alabama could be instant and pretty devastating. And we're not just talking about abstract legal stuff. This hits everyday life. Suddenly, your marriage could be gone. Your right to adopt could be denied. You could face discrimination at work or in housing with no federal protection. And maybe the most shocking of all, old, archaic laws that actually criminalize same-sex relationships could snap right back into effect. Now, what's happening in Alabama? Well, it's not happening in a bubble. It's actually a perfect example of a much bigger issue in the U.S. right now. This patchwork of protections, where your basic rights can literally change depending on what state you live in. And that divide it's stark. I mean, look at it. On one side, you've got states like California and Colorado, where they have these full, explicit protections written directly into their own state laws. But then, on the other side, you've got states like Alabama and Texas that are almost completely dependent on those federal court rulings for the exact same protections. And get this is a really crucial point. Even though Lawrence v. Texas made them impossible to enforce, a whole bunch of states, like the ones you see here, never bothered to actually take their old anti-sodomy laws off the books. So if Lawrence gets overturned, these laws that are just sitting there, dormant, could be switched back on overnight. It would create a total legal minefield. You can imagine, all of this uncertainty is making a lot of LGBTQ plus Americans look for options, even options outside the U.S. And it's not just about a change of scenery. People are looking for safety, for stability, and honestly, for just basic human dignity. This quote from Bob McCraney just perfectly captures that feeling of urgency. It's a powerful reference to history, to times when people had to flee persecution. It really gets at this deep fear that if you wait too long, it might actually be too late to get out safely. And then you hear these incredibly personal stories, like this one from an American woman in Mexico. She's just checking into a hotel, and the person at the desk refers to her partner as her wife. Just like that. A simple moment of recognition. But for her, it was absolutely profound. Something she realized she could never just take for granted back home. Yeah, the contrast can be pretty jarring. You've got American expats in a place like Portugal trying to explain the kind of discrimination the LGBTQ plus community faces in parts of the US, and their new friends are just baffled. They're completely flabbergasted. The idea that someone's identity is a political football is just totally foreign to them. Think about this for a second. Can you imagine living in a society that's so integrated, so accepting, that the whole concept of a gayborhood or a designated safe space just isn't necessary? That's what an expat in Uruguay described. When asked where the gay area was, the answer was basically, that's not really a thing here, because the whole country feels safe. Okay, so for anyone who is seriously thinking about this, how does it even work? What are the actual practical steps? Let's take a look at some of the most welcoming countries and the real pathways to relocation. So, where are people going? Well, a few frontrunners keep popping up. You see a lot in Western Europe, Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, and then others like Canada and Uruguay. And they all pretty much share the same things. Really strong legal protections, marriage equality, and a culture of social acceptance that runs deep. And, it's not just about legal rights. The quality of life differences can be absolutely staggering. Take healthcare. An expat in Spain mentioned that their top-level private health insurance for a family of 3 cost about 1,800 euros for the entire year. For most Americans, hearing that number is it's almost unbelievable.
And the cool thing is, these pathways are getting more and more accessible. Look at Portugal, for example. You've got all these different options, from a digital nomad visa if you work remotely, to visas for investors or for folks who have passive retirement income. These kinds of programs are turning the dream of moving abroad into a very tangible, very real plan for a lot of people. So all of this, the legal battles, the personal stories, the escape plans, it all brings us back to one really fundamental question. What does it actually mean to be safe? And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. What does it say when citizens of a country that was literally founded on the idea of liberty feel that true safety, real acceptance, and the freedom to just be themselves feels more achievable somewhere else? It's a question that really forces us to think about what home is and what we should be able to expect from it.